our families here in the Bronx of the 11-year-old, and we join you all in prayer as well. Thank you again for being here. I hope everyone is safe and healthy. And again, just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that there's pain, and we are moving together in prayer. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 85, and Chapter 69, Section 2706 of the New York City Charter, a joint meeting of the Bronx Borough Service Cabinet and Bronx Borough Board will take place today, Thursday, May 26, 2022, starting at 10 a.m. via WebEx. A reminder that this is a live stream. We have a super tight agenda this morning, and so we're going to get right to it. This morning, joining us today is Dan Garotnik, Chair of the City Planning Department here in the City of New York. And so, Dan, I give the floor to you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi there. Good morning. Good to see you all. I'm very happy to be with you. I'm a longtime friend of the borough president and many members of the Bronx delegation in the council, and of course somebody who has a long history with community boards, and really appreciate the work that you all do. By way of very brief introduction, I was honored to be appointed the chair of the City Planning Commission and director of the Department of City Planning by Mayor Adams on February 7. I'm a lifelong New Yorker. Most recently, I was the CEO of a not-for-profit organization that supported 6 miles of public parkland and advocated for park improvements citywide. And before that, and the reason why I have some experience with the council and the borough president and community boards, that I was for 12 years a city council member representing the east side of Manhattan from 14th to 98th Street. So I was really eager to come say hello to you all, because I know how important your work is for cross-borough strategy and implementation. I know how hard you all work. And I want you to know, first and foremost, that the Department of City Planning is really eager to be a partner to you all. We want to be collaborative. We want to be forward-looking. We want to be clear in our approach. From my communications as the chair at our city planning hearings to every planner, we are working to use more accessible, plain language to explain why we are doing what we are doing. I think frequently, some of the technicalities are lost because of how complicated so much of this stuff is. You start talking about a C64 overlay, your eyes start to glaze over. So we really do need to do a good job at explaining the work of city planning to the communities all around the city. The agency is doing a lot of different important work, from population to demographics, economic trends, regional planning, urban design, and of course, you all know about our work with zoning and ULURP. So we're trying to find ways to help New Yorkers understand the importance of what we're doing and to connect it to a bigger picture. We really appreciate the partnership that we have with the community boards and with council members. And I do want you to know, since you all see applications that have been certified by city planning, that are at community boards, I want you to know we're going to take your recommendations seriously. So if you send us recommendations that are viable and well considered, we are going to be sure to amplify them in the process. I certainly look for those. I want to know what they are. I'm concerned about community-related issues that you all are raising. So please be thoughtful, amplify that voice, and we will certainly take it and do our best to improve projects through the process. We also are looking to bring a new approach to capital investment, led by good planning principles. Too often, our city agencies, as you all know, are working in silos. The Parks Department needs this. The Department of Environmental Protection needs that. the Department of Transportation needs something else, and they're all making their case to OMB. Well, the mayor's blueprint announced what we call a seed fund, which is a way for us to look for catalytic investments across agencies. So find those opportunities that are not just a single agency's initiatives, but ones that will have real impacts across agencies in our various communities and fund them. We're looking for areas that have seen historic disinvestment, opportunities for jobs, housing, and growth, and to make real investments. And we also are going to be partnering with neighborhoods all around the city for bigger opportunities to do neighborhood planning related capital investments. And we're not just going to invest when there's a rezoning at play. So that's a really important point and important change. I also want to note that we recently launched our Equitable Development Data Explorer, which is a tool that will help bring transparency to conversations about affordability, gentrification, and displacement. And we are about to, work is underway here, and will certainly come to you all down the line, but we are looking to make changes to zoning text citywide that will do a couple of things. That will help to promote economic development. So find ways to reduce red tape for businesses that are providing good jobs, make smart fixes that allow for a little bit more flexibility. The example that I like to give is, there are places in this city where you have a C1 zone on one side of the street and a C2 zone on the other side of the street. In one, you're allowed to buy a bike, and the other one, you can repair a bike, but you can't do the other thing on the other side of the street. So we're looking to rationalize some of our use group limitations to allow for flexibility and to reduce the vacancies that we have in some of our businesses around the city. And to take this moment, we obviously know that this is a difficult moment for the city, and we want to spur economic growth and opportunity. We also are looking at text changes to promote sustainability and our zero carbon goals. That will include addressing some of the limitations on solar panels and battery storage. We want to not penalize buildings that are doing the right thing for sustainability as it relates to density. And we want to modernize the zoning resolution to allow for things like electric car charging. You won't be surprised to know that the 1961 zoning resolution does not mention electric vehicles. It has a lot of gas stations in there, but nothing on electric vehicles. And electric car vehicle charging, it's much more like a garage than a gas station. So it would be compatible with a variety of other uses in a way that gas stations are not. So this 5-borough economic development plan is going to help to make sure that our economy and the infrastructure that supports it is flexible and resilient, inclusive, and innovative as we move to a post-pandemic future. Now, I do want to note, really importantly for the Bronx, we are very excited about our plans and investments for the 4 neighborhoods that are getting new Metro North stations. So this is a really exciting initiative. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity to improve transit access for the city and the region to promote economic development and also infrastructure for Bronxites. By way of example, Morris Park, as you all know, it's home to over 23,000 jobs within a half mile of what will be the future Metro North station. It includes Montefiore, Jacobi Medical Center, Einstein Medical School, and life sciences are big in the Bronx, and New York City's metro area is leading the way for life sciences. Jobs and funding, and in the Bronx, the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, it gets nearly $200 million in grants from the National Institutes of Health every year. So we believe that the future is bright for life sciences innovation in Morris Park. Of course, you have Parkchester, Van Ness, another area where we think that there are opportunities for investment and housing production and other improvements. And we are looking to address the two other stations as well, more from an investment perspective than a zoning perspective. But we're really excited about these four stations. We think they're going to be transformative for the Bronx and for the city. And as you all know, the MTA construction is starting this year with service expected in 2027. We have a draft of our plan if you want to look at it on nyc.gov/BMNS. So please check it out, and more to come on that. And we look forward to our conversations with you all. So I will close with this, that we really want to be supportive of this borough board and the members of this borough board as much as we possibly can. Our Bronx office at City Planning is eager to engage with you all and to plan together. We look forward to a productive relationship. You've got an early preview on some of our future text amendment concepts that we expect to be coming to you. These are not coming to you tomorrow. They're not even coming to you in the next couple of months. So I want to give you the earliest possible preview. I know that it's frequently a criticism by community boards of this agency that I now have the privilege to run, that that things are not socialized at an early enough time to allow community boards to engage. We don't want to fall into that trap. So even though I'm not even ready to give you all the full briefing, I did want to give you a head start to let you know that some of this stuff is coming. It was mentioned in the mayor's blueprint. We're looking to put it into action, and it will be coming to you down the line. So with that, I will close. And again, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to say hello to you all this morning.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you for being here. And before we take questions really quickly, bear with me, Chair. Apologies for the skip, but I wanted to we were so excited to have you on that we skipped roll call. And so really quickly, I just want to, for the record, take attendance to ensure that we have our representatives from the community board and from our elected officials office. We will be brief and come back to you. I'm sure that folks have some questions, but also excited to meet you. And again, thank you for prioritizing the Bronx upon your appointment. So I will begin with roll call really quickly, starting with the community boards. CB1.
Arlene Parks here. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairwoman. CB2.
Good morning, Ralph Acevedo, District Manager.
Good morning, Ralph. CB3.
Etta Ritter, Acting Assistant District Manager, Community Board 3.
Good morning, Etta. CB4.
Robert Garmendes, Chair.
Good morning, Chair. CB5.
Good morning, Deputy Borough President. This is Ken Brown, the District Manager of Board 5.
Buenos dias, Ken.
Bon matin.
CB6. CB7.
Hi, good morning. This is Jade Guzman, the Community Associate.
Good morning, Jade. CB8.
Good morning. This is Laura Spalter, Chair, Community Board 8.
Good morning. This is Kira again in District Manager, CB8.
Good morning. Good morning. CB9.
Good morning. Shirley San Andres Alonso, Assistant District Manager.
Good morning, Shirley. CB10. CB11. CB12.
Good morning, George Torres, District Manager, Community Board 12.
Good morning, George. Right, moving to City Council reps. District 8, Deputy Speaker Ayala.
Good morning, Deputy Borough President Jose Rodriguez, Chief of Staff.
Good morning, Jose. District 11, CM Dinowitz. District 12, CM Kevin Riley. District 13, CM Velasquez.
Good morning, everyone. Adrian here from Councilor Marjorie Velasquez's office.
Good morning, Adrian. District 14, CM Sanchez. District 15, CM Feliz. District 16, CM Stevens.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kate Connolly from Councilmember Stevens' office.
Good morning, Kate. District 17, CM Salamanca. District 18, CM Farias.
Good morning, everyone. Rebecca Nieves here from Councilmember Farias's office.
Good morning, Rebecca. And I do see that we have representatives from the Department of Finance. Any other agencies?
Hey, good morning. The Department of Consumer Worker Protection.
Good morning, Effie Artizzoni, DEP Community Affairs.
Good morning, Valerie Davis O'Neill, New York City Parks Commissioner's Office.
Thank you for joining.
Good morning, Chelsea Cipriano, New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. I'm joined by my colleague, Kenneth.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Wonderful. Okay, great. Any questions for the chair? Feel free to use your raise hand feature.
Let's see, George Torres has his hand raised. Go ahead, George.
Good morning. Thank you. So, thank you. I guess I call you commissioner now or former. I always refer to electeds as their previous thing. So, council member.
You can call me Dan. Let's go with that. That'll probably be simplest for everybody.
All right, cool. I guess my question is, you spoke about it in terms of how do you get more community engagement, especially in light of the fact that communities like mine recently have taken a sort of anti-development position. We have not been generous in terms of our meetings with people because some of the developers that we've been meeting with, we've asked for more parking and other things like that. We're in the Bronx, for example. We don't have the luxury of having shopping centers, within walking distance of our apartments or homes. So we've always implored developers to do it, and they say that they're not required to do it, and anything that they do to increase the parking takes away from addressing the affordable housing issue, the housing stock, which are all very valid concerns. But we have voted against, I know we voted against several housing starts in our district. You also contrast that, you mentioned something that really piqued my interest in I think you called it the Equitable Database Tracker.
Yeah, almost. Equitable Development Data Explorer.
Okay,
yeah,
I was completely
enough, but you got the flavor.
I got equitable right. All right. So it's interesting because the other side of that coin is the developments that we have 3 new ones. There was a ribbon cutting in my district yesterday for 4519 White Plains Road, which was the Doe Fund building affordable housing. I've received 3 emails or 3 notifications from prospective developers saying they want to do certain things on White Plains Road before affordable housing. The community board has no objection, and we've had conversations where we say we want affordable permanent housing rather than shelters in our district, but sometimes it feels as though the Bronx is being overburdened or shouldering the burden of supportive housing for the rest of the city. And I'm wondering if that equitable development, that tracker is going to take into account these types of things, because I can never get a straight answer from my social service agencies about the types of developments. It's only when they notify us that we are made aware that these are the types of housing that is being built. But after it's built and residents move in, if I ask for a census of what's going on in my district, I get the cold shoulder from the agencies. So I'm wondering, when you're doing these assessments of what a community is facing and what type of housing we have, are you taking into account like, oh, hey, let's not do the South Bronx anymore because the South Bronx has been overburdened with homeless shelters and things like that. So, those are my two questions. How do you engage the community more against the backdrop of certain communities being NIMBY? I mean, I know that Community Board 10 is not here, so they're not here to speak for themselves. There's a hot debate going right now about the Bruckner rezoning in that neck of the woods. And then, like I said, in my own district, what's going on here? How do you engage more people, yet at the same time answer the call of the city? Because my understanding is that we don't have enough affordable housing by millions of apartments. So there you go.
George, it's an excellent question, and in many ways a very, very difficult question to answer, because on one hand, we do not want to overburden communities that have done more than their share of various citywide prerogatives over time that they may not want. And on the other hand, we also have to ask more of every community in order for us to catch up with what we need to do as it relates to housing. Just by way of illustration, over the last 10 years, the city added 800,000 jobs and about 200,000 homes. Over the past 40 years, where we increased our population by 1.7 million people, we created housing at half of the rate that we had created it in the prior 40 years when we actually had lost population in New York City. So we have an enormous crisis in the city. And so, this is not an issue that can or should be specific to the Bronx. It is a citywide issue. We are going to need to have this difficult conversation. We're going to need communities to, think about the broader policy issues that we're facing in the city as they're evaluating these applications. And I recognize it's often a very difficult conversation. Now, about that Equitable Data Development Explorer, Equitable Development Data Explorer, EDDE. That does, it shows what has happened, and it shows trends, and it puts in a variety of factors, which I think will spur very important conversations about gentrification, displacement risk, et cetera. And I encourage you to take a look at it, and you should let me know what you think. And if there are areas which you think that it could do better, we're open to adjusting. It's very new. But as to pointing developers, say, oh, hey, Bronx has done X, Y, or Z, go check out another borough for a little while. In some ways, we're the recipient of private applications from people who own real estate around the city and are interested in doing something with it. That could be in the Bronx, that could be in Queens, it could be anywhere. And our role is to both balance community interests while also trying to advance housing and to address the very critical crisis that we are in. And the commitment that you have from me is, we're going to do our very best to be a partner to the community board. We understand. I certainly understand. I've lived these issues. Right? I was a council member. I've been to it's 10,000 community board meetings. I get it. I understand the challenges in various neighborhoods around the city. To share information, to be candid. We don't want you to have to chase us for answers. Like we want to be responsive. We want to be a partner to you all as we have what are oftentimes difficult issues to get through. So hope that helps.
Thank you. If I may follow up, the previous city council speaker had a thing where he wasn't going to let individual council members stop developments. I'm forgetting what dealing with the council member preference.
Member deference.
Member deference. Thank you. There was a project in our district pre-pandemic. It was a shopping mall, or supposed to be sort of a shopping center at Baychester Square is what they were calling it. It's a former golf shooting range on Gun Hill Road. It's very tip of my district, across the street, Community Board 11, across the highway, Community Board 10. I raised this for two reasons. One, the community board supported it overwhelmingly. Borough President's office supported it overwhelmingly. Died in the city council. I wrote a letter to the council speaker, Corey Johnson, speaking to this issue. This was something where the quote unquote community wanted something that never happened. And, you know, not only did an elected official in the form of the former borough president, Ruben Diaz, but the the community board wanted this. Never went anywhere. Now we're getting an electric bus depot. So that project has been scrapped. And I think electric buses are wonderful. You know, again, we want it, but I think that this was a lost opportunity for our community. And I'm just curious, I'm sure that there's other examples across the Bronx and across the city where council deference sort of killed the project. Maybe even the mayor's office may have wanted it. The city planning agencies may have wanted it, but it never got off the ground. These are where I'm talking about, where everybody speaks to community engagement. You had something, but, you know, I'm not even going to speak to who the former council member was, who left on the very, what I won't even speak to it. It's just a lost opportunity because we're under retailed in the Bronx. We thought that that might have been something that, you talk about economic development as well, would have been a major economic boon for that community, yet we lost out on it. And because the MTA, you know, the pandemic hit everybody hard, MTA said, you know what, we have this giant space, we're going to do it. And I know that you guys don't run the MTA. No engagement, at least with the community board, with the siting of that facility. We were unaware of it until they literally wrote a newspaper article about it. So, you know, it's inexplicable to me, and it's very upsetting because, again, it's a lost opportunity. So that's what I speak to when I say, you know, it's fine if you want to engage the community, but these things have to be actionable. You know, the community needs to feel like they're doing or getting something, not in return, but, you know, their voices are being heard and, you know, things are happening. So, you know, again, I don't know if you guys can weigh in on member deference, do away with it.
Let me just take a crack at that, because you know, I have seen this from a variety of angles. I have been in the role where I was quite literally the local council member who stopped a project. And I am also now the chair of city planning, who believes that, at least as it relates to city issues of citywide concerns, or broader than, you know, a single, you know, council district, there, you know, the council should be thinking more broadly about how to address these sorts of issues. It's complicated. At the end of the day, it is we're in a political process, right? The community board, city planning, borough president, we are, and the council, we're connected in a political process. As you point out, the community board does not want to be in a situation where their voice is ignored by a local council member. We don't want that either. Like, we're with you. Like, we get it, right? Like, we have people at this agency who are working for a year and a half on a project which might have been supported by the community board and the borough president, then dies at the council. Like, there's a lot of people who share that frustration. So you know, you should know it's not just a community board thing, and it's a challenge. Now, when you're sitting in the seat of the council member, obviously, you know, you are doing your best. I can't speak to the specific example that you're giving, or, you know, and you were very careful not to get into great detail, but, like, you know, the council members are doing their best to try to respond to community needs and what they are hearing from their neighborhood. So it is, at the end of the day, a political process. So people need to elevate their voices, particularly when they want to say yes. I can tell you with certainty, when you're in the council, you hear a lot more no's than you hear yeses. So if it's a yesable proposition from a community perspective, I would encourage you to speak up because those voices tend to get drowned out, and that's what allows what you are describing to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. And unfortunately, we're running a little tight for time. We have a representative from the OHMH that's going to speak on the Legionnaires and current outbreak. And so we only have her for 10 minutes. But Chair, is it possible for us to follow up with questions?
Of course, of course,
Okay,
of course.
wonderful.
Definitely. Anytime, anytime.
Great.
So it's good to see you all.
Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So next up, as I mentioned, we have a representative from the OHMH who's going to give us a overview of Legionnaires and the current outbreak here in the Bronx. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ms. Chelsea Cipriani.
Thanks. Hey, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I've had some audio issues. Perfect. Thank you. Hello, I'm Chelsea Cipriano. I don't think I've met all of you. I'm the Executive Director of Intergovernmental Affairs here at the Health Department. I'm joined by my colleague, Kenneth Johnson, who I believe you all know. He is your amazing liaison to the Health Department, keeping you abreast of all important issues for the Bronx. Very quickly, I think that many of you are aware that we continue to investigate a cluster of Legionnaire's disease in zip codes 10452 and 10456. And so I thought it was a good time. Summer is starting. We do see, Legionnaire's disease, which for those who aren't familiar, I'm just going to run through kind of an overview of the condition. It's a type of pneumonia. I know that folks get a little confused about that. Maybe it should be called Legionnaire's pneumonia, but it is not. It is called Legionnaire's disease. And so I thought I would do a little bit of an overview and answer questions if folks have them. So just a quick situational overview before we jump into the deck. So at this time, 20 people have been diagnosed, confirmed cases with Legionnaire's disease in this cluster area since May 3rd. Unfortunately, one person has passed away. And, the health department, when this happens, jumps into action. We immediately started sampling and testing the water from all the cooling towers in the system. 4 of those towers tested positive for the presence of Legionella, the bacteria that causes this type of pneumonia. And were immediately ordered to disinfect. I think, now is a good time to go through Legionnaires, but people should know if they live in those zip codes, absolutely seek care immediately. If you have flu-like symptoms like cough, fever, chills, muscle aches, shortness of breath, the risk is relatively low for most people, but particularly if you're higher risk, we want folks to be aware of this so that if they have those symptoms, they can seek care immediately. All right, Kenneth, let's go into the deck and I'll just go through some basics of Legionnaires. So what is Legionnaire's disease? So as I said, it's a type of pneumonia. Legionella bacteria is ubiquitous in the environment. It's naturally occurring. It is a thing that is out there. And what happens with the bacteria is it can grow in warm water. And, this happens. There are one-off cases of Legionnaires every year. We have a couple hundred cases per year here in New York City. And when we get concerned is when we start seeing cases together in a specific area. We have really robust disease surveillance systems that tells us when this happens. And that's how we know that it's time to jump into actions and figure out what might be linking these. Is there an environmental hazard that may be, a shared or multiple that may be of shared concern? So Legionnaire's disease, like all pneumonias, of course, they can be fatal. Complications from it can be fatal. These are the symptoms, as I said: fever, chills, muscle aches, and a cough. Sound familiar? They're flu-like symptoms. They sound a lot similar to COVID-like symptoms that people may be experiencing. But you may also have headaches, fatigue, loss of appetite, confusion, or diarrhea. This is why we say, if you have these symptoms, please seek medical attention right away, especially if you smoke or if you have a medical condition that affects your breathing, like a chronic lung disease, asthma. Tell your healthcare provider immediately and let them know that you're worried about Legionnaire's disease. We have notified providers in the area. Whenever this happens, we notify providers in the area to let them know, be on the lookout for Legionnaire's disease, test people and evaluate them for this specific type of pneumonia. Next slide. So how do you get it? This is a number one question. I think folks get really confused between this type of investigation, which is a cluster investigation, versus a building investigation. So important thing to know first and foremost, it is okay to drink your water. This is, we believe, Legionnaire's disease, when it comes in clusters, not we believe, the way it spreads is you're breathing in water that contains the bacteria when it's in a vapor outside. So cooling towers, showers can do this, hot tubs can do this. They give off the vapor into the air. People inhale that vapor, and then people who, are at higher risk in particular because of condition or age, they, may get this pneumonia condition. People who have Legionnaires cannot make others sick. I think particularly in pandemic times and COVID times, people are really worried about this. You cannot spread Legionnaires from one person to another. It's likely that that bacteria causing this pneumonia is as cooling towers in the affected area. These are systems that are usually found on top of a building, but not always. They're usually outside the building. Do not confuse this with your water tank. So these iconic structures in New York City hold our drinking water. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the other thing next to it that really, works for the building's central AC and types of refrigeration. And so that's why, I think people get really concerned, like, oh, do I have a cooling tower on top of my building? We don't want people to think like that. That's why we talk about this in cluster language, in zip code language, not building specific language. Because I don't want folks to hear, oh, I don't have a cooling tower on my building, or my cooling tower was fine, and not think, I still need to be on high alert if I have these symptoms, right? That's what, and all of you are amazing messengers to your communities and, unfortunately have been through this before. I think it's really, really, really important to drive home this fact that we don't focus on, talking about this building or that building because we want people in the community to know about the risks, because that's how this works. And we also don't want people to be scared to drink their water, particularly as we are heading into, we've already had a hot weekend, hot summer weekends. Building water, drinking cold water from the tap, absolutely fine. When you're heating water for tea, coffee, cooking, start with cold water. Next slide. So what are we doing about it? That's a fair question. Number one, so in terms of reactive for this cluster, I talked a little bit about how this kicks off. Basically, we have two sides of the house at the health department. We have our disease experts, our disease detectives, our surveillance team. For all conditions, reportable conditions, symptoms in New York City, we have disease surveillance telling us what's going on. When they see something concerning, when they see, this area is testing positive for this, or we've seen multiple cases of this in this area, or a lot of symptoms of one condition, we jump into action. They then work with our environmental health and water team to figure out what is going on and how do we quickly eliminate, or at least investigate and try to eliminate as best we can, cutting off potential sources of risk. So that's really the reactive thing that we have jumped into action doing. We've sampled and tested the water from all of the cooling tower systems in the area. We've issued orders to remediate as needed. And then we also send outreach staff out immediately. So we've had teams on the ground handing out these flyers. You may have seen them. If you haven't and you want them, we have in English and Spanish. Please let us know, and we'd love for you to help us distribute them to people to really make folks aware. Again, the risk of this is low to most people, but if they have symptoms, they need to get care now. And this is really, the second part of a bigger process here. This is the reactive piece. The proactive piece is that the city council several years ago, in response to the horrible, the deaths that came out of the 2015 Legionnaires disease cluster in the Bronx, in South Bronx, passed really, really, really strong regulations for cooling towers. It was the first of its kind in the country where cooling tower operators, so buildings that have cooling towers are now required to do a lot of things. They are required, number one, first and foremost, as simple as it may seem, to register with the department so that we know where all of the cooling towers are. They're required to annually clean. They're required to listen to us when we say, hey, you need to do a biocide treatment during the summer. So really, I think this two-part system with like really robust regulations. And then also, if something happens, if we see this, pneumonia out there, because again, it happens, we can jump into action to try to eliminate sources of exposure. So I think that's it. Kenneth, do I have one more slide or is that the end? Yes, great. So if community members have questions, of course, call 301. All of our information about Legionnaires disease is here at nyc.gov/health/Legionnaires. And we have an email address for folks. You of course have Kenneth as your main contact at the health department, but people can email this address with questions. We also sent text messages out through NYC Alert to folks in those zip codes this morning. We're continuing flyering at least through tomorrow with community groups on the ground. And we're doing briefings like these really to raise awareness of what folks need to be on the lookout for. So thank you for having me. Before we jump into questions, I just want to really quick, because I think I want to make sure this is still front of mind for folks. COVID. I know no one wants to hear about it anymore, but it is quite literally my job to tell you about it. So I'm going to. I think we are in high alert in New York City. I'm not sure if folks are totally understanding what that means, so I thought I would just take a moment to talk about it. High alert for COVID means that cases and hospitalizations are increasing to a concerning rate. So our new COVID alert system, which I'll drop a link in the chat, describes actions that New Yorkers and the government should be taking at each of these kind of alert levels based on risk. Right now, I mean, you can see I'm practicing what I'm telling everyone to do. I am wearing a mask indoors in indoor public settings. I am up to date on all of my vaccines, boosted. That now means not just fully vaccinated, but boosted. While we have a great rate of vaccination, including in the Bronx, citywide, we're just about 80%, almost 80%, 78, 80% for fully vaccinated. That's not enough anymore. We need people boosted, and only about 38% of people in New York have a booster shot right now. That means that we are unprotected from new variants of COVID-19. That means people are getting reinfected. That means their outcomes are going to be worse if they get sick. So that's why things like vaccines, masks, continuing to get tested. I know, folks are like, oh, our rates aren't that high, but I think you can also look to see your community's testing rate and see whether it compares, whether it's high compared to the rest of the city. Folks are not really getting tested anymore. We need people to get tested when they are feeling sick, first and foremost, after they've had exposure to someone who has COVID-19, particularly with this weekend coming up, before and after you're traveling, really important to get tested and just sit out that barbecue if you're not feeling well. I know we've missed people for 2 years, but it's more important than ever during this surge that we're having right now to protect each other and protect ourselves. If you do get sick, of course, we have treatment options available. You can get those very, very easily if you're eligible, if you're at high risk for severe complications. I'll speak from personal experience. I just recently had COVID. I'm young, I'm healthy, except I have asthma. It was pretty rough, but I got Paxlovid very easily, same day from my doctor. I took the regimen, didn't taste so good, but I'm really hoping that it helped me recover, and I'm hoping that preliminary results are showing that it may prevent some symptoms of long COVID. So that's just my personal experience. I'm sure everyone knows people with COVID right now, and I just wanted to do another plug because we are in high alert level, and I think folks may be missing that. And I appreciate all of your help getting the word out and helping us share resources. So that was my rapid COVID update. I'm happy to take questions. I do only have a couple of minutes, but we are here, and Kenneth and I are here via email as well.
Chelsea, thank you very much. And there's some questions in the chat, so I'll try to consolidate them as much as possible. And also, if you have a question, please use the raise hand feature and we'll get through them as quickly as possible. Capitalize on the time that we have with Chelsea. So thank you again, Chelsea. And we're also wishing you a speedy recovery. Thank you. So we have a question from CM Ayala's office, Jose Rodriguez. basically around outreach. So what outreach has been done and who are the community groups working with the Bronx team, to address the 4 cooling towers. And I think you kind of briefly went over that, but if you can, if there are some groups that we can partner up with, just as an FYI, yesterday, the Bronx Borough president was at Malik Park in partnership with Release Grip to hand out the pamphlets that you just shared with us.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I guess I'll just say thank you to many of you. I know a lot of the elected official offices and community board offices on right now have partnered with us in sharing this information. So thank you. Even if you don't have folks to do it on the ground, we have assets for social media sharing. I think, Jose, I'll defer to Kenneth on sharing exact names of organizations. We have several that we've worked with throughout COVID, our Bronx Health Action Center and community health workers through our public health corps, I believe, who are on the ground doing this. But if you have folks who want to join, if you want to go out on your own, we fully support that. You all know this community best. I will say that globally, always you know your communities best. And so we want to hear from you where we should be. If there are additional resources needed, please let us know. With regard to the 4 towers, so we aren't able to share the locations of the 4 towers. I didn't say this in my presentation, but these are preliminary results right now. So I think everyone can understand from COVID times, you take a test and then there's sometimes a confirmatory test. That's what's happening with the towers right now. For us, not that it doesn't matter, but it kind of doesn't matter in terms of action. We told them to disinfect immediately based on that test, right? And that's the important part, that they are taking action immediately. We follow up to make sure that action was taken. And so it's kind of like we do confirmatory testing because we're good scientists, but we want to make sure that action is being taken first and foremost, no matter what. And I also, back to what I said earlier, and this is how all of you can really help us here, because I think you'll understand how confusing this can be for folks, particularly if they've been through, a building water investigation where people were told to drink bottled water in their building or something like that. We don't want people to think, well, I don't have a cooling tower in my building, so even though I'm high risk and I haven't been feeling well today, I'm fine. I don't want people to think that we want people to think, okay, there is an issue in my community, in my neighborhood. Doesn't matter that it's not my building or the building next to me that doesn't have a cooling tower. It matters that I need to be aware of these symptoms that I'm having and seek care immediately. I think I covered all of your questions, Jose, but Kenneth, if you have anything to add on the community groups, let me know. Oh, I'll say, I know folks are scared. And I think it is an understatement to say that we have all been through far too much trauma in the last 2 years. In the last week alone, I cannot overstate that. It is immense and it feels impossible. And so folks are scared, and we really appreciate your help in helping them understand the real risk here, that the city is in a very different place than we were in 2015. These laws, the BP was in council at the time and really championed these bills, and I know others were as well. These laws have set up this infrastructure, so we're in a very different place. We know where the cooling towers are. We can take immediate action. I would say this really, really robust system is set up to do exactly what it's doing right now, to react and be proactive. So Kenneth, anything to add?
Thanks, Chelsea. I just wanted to add that our outreach teams are, yesterday they were at 170th Street train station along the D line. Today they're at 167th and Grand Concourse. As Chelsea said, it's the Bronx Action Team. I don't have these specific community organizations, but I can follow up with Jose or anyone else afterwards to provide those details. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it'll be great if Chelsea, Kenneth, if you can share with us marketing materials and the groups as well, and our team will spread it to the entire borough board, borough cabinet.
Absolutely. And if folks in other community boards have questions or want this information to have on hand, I think it's just helpful information to understand about Legionnaires in general. And then if there are future clusters, we have them on hand and we are hitting ready to go. So we're also always open to taking suggestions on CBOs that may need flyers, and we can help them get those as well.
And I'll take Two more questions, Chelsea, if that's okay. There's a question on whether the city is able to provide any type of funding for property owners that that notice that their systems need to be tested.
I do not know. That is not a question that I've gotten before. And I don't know if it's one that we've gotten from property owners, but we're happy to look into it and take it back. I don't think this is something that we've done.
Great.
Mhm.
I think that's Arlene, you have a follow-up. That was your question. You could unmute.
Thank you. We had a situation back in 2015 where the hub area had people infected. And because that's such a central shopping district for my district, there was at least 2 or 3 people that traced back to a specific location. And what that did was to trigger a notice to the property owner that they needed to test their shower bodies and their water systems. And that placed a financial burden on that property owner. And we're operating in a COVID environment where there are cash flow issues for property owners. So I was just wondering if the city can provide any financial assistance to any property owner that receives that notification and where they have cash flow issues because people are not paying rent for whatever reason, but for,
Right.
due to the COVID.
Totally understood. Okay, that's very helpful context. So I still don't know the answer is the real answer. I think the answer is probably we don't do that. And it's because we're in a different situation than we were in 2015, where this is now a part of the property owner's standing requirement of being a property owner. If you're building a new building, this is now a law that you need to do this regularly. It's not just done during these times of clusters, right? It's now part of your regular maintenance. It's a law that you need to report to the health department that you do it. So I think it's just a little bit of a different structure. Still happy to check on that question, but it's a little different than just they're getting a notice and they have to do it and it's unplanned. This is something they really need to be doing under law every year and regularly. And when there's an issue, they now know we're going to come tell you that you need to do this proactively.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. And I see Laura has her hand raised, and then Ken. Laura, you can unmute.
I'm sorry, that was from before. It was
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Ken?
Yeah, but thank you very much. I wanted to know, have the 4 water towers that have been tested now have been retested, and has the disease or presence of the disease been suppressed? And if not, what are follow-up actions? And then also, to what do you attribute the current outbreak of this disease? Why now?
Yeah, I'm actually going to start with your second question because I think it's an important framing for everyone to understand. As I said, Legionella is we say ubiquitous. That's a really wonky, nerdy term. And I think naturally occurring, right? Like it's naturally occurring in the environment. We will see cases time to time, and it's these clusters where we really want to stop whatever's happening from spreading further. I think one theory, I will say, this is nationally, we are seeing an increase in Legionnaires cases across the country, is climate change. It is the changing climate that is creating more cases more regularly. So, if you look at we submit reports about this to City Council. If you look at our data about Legionnaires disease, and it's on our website, you will see that cases, it's still, several hundred per year. It's not like leaps and bounds higher, but we are seeing increases year over year. And so I think that's why it's important to have regulations like we do, because there's, like I was saying, that proactive approach and the reactive approach when things like this happen. We have a system in place for something that is naturally occurring and is just happening more often. It's important that everyone's aware of kind of what we need to do when we see things like this, and we can act really quickly on them. To your other question about the retested, I don't know if they've been reevaluated yet. Like I said, we're still waiting on the final on the confirmatory test to come back, but they were ordered to disinfect. So that's something that we can check on to see what the timeline is on, rechecking to make sure that everyone has followed our, order. It's a commissioner's order. But I don't know if like the follow-up has been done yet. I think this is one of those ongoing investigation pieces. One thing that I didn't mention at the beginning is, of course, there are 20 confirmed cases right now. We will keep all of, the local folks updated if there are additional cases confirmed. What we really look for when we're talking about Legionnaires cases is the date of diagnosis. So, while we first started seeing cases in this cluster on May 3rd, we continue to see cases being confirmed after testing and evaluation. So we're really looking to see that number slowing down so that we know that the cluster is under control. So that's kind of the onus of the ongoing investigation, and why we have, as regular communications as we can right now. It's daily that we're trying to keep people updated, and why we sent out text messages this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Marisol, you have a question?
So a quick question, given that people are going into the hospital for flu-like symptoms or pneumonia, and we're now looking at COVID, we're looking at pneumonia, should we be asking people to get tested for all of it, to have a Legionnaire's test done at the same time? Only because that's the only way you're going to find out whether they in fact have Legionella. So
Yeah,
is that what's being shared? It's not just
Yes.
COVID that you're looking at. They're also going to test you for Legionella, or they just, or is that just part
that's a
of it?
great question. Yeah, so we communicate really closely with doctors and healthcare providers when we see clusters like this and issues. I will say for all conditions, some of you may be on our health alert network or monitor those. Those are really for providers, but anyone can join and get those notices. I think the guidance that we give is when evaluating, of course, these are flu-like symptoms and people have the flu right now. People absolutely have COVID right now. As you're evaluating patients for all of these very similar looking conditions, this is what's happening in the environment. Please also evaluate the patient for Legionnaires. And we also are telling people, if you go to the doctor, let them know that you live in one of these zip codes, live, work, spend time in one of these zip codes, and let them know that you're concerned about these symptoms as well. So it's a little bit of a two-sided. We don't want the onus to be all on New Yorkers. So we as the health department and providers are partners in this as well.
Thank you.
Great. Chelsea, do you have time for one more question?
I am running 2 minutes over for a meeting, but if it's quick, I can try. I can do my fastest.
Robert from CB4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Robert, if you can be brief.
Yeah.
Because the two zip codes are in CB4. Okay.
That's right.
We've been affected. You're giving information up on the concourse. I need for you to give information along Jerome Avenue because it's Highbridge is being affected. Being affected by it. Okay. Also, even one of our own board members has been affected by this thing. So it's become, close. And I'm listening carefully. Please find out exactly why Highbridge is being affected up there. What's going wrong with the not the testing, but with what the landlord should be doing and so on and so forth. Because, and I'm kind of skeptical, but you just blaming possible of the climate change. Okay, we're not down south. We're New York City, and the climate hasn't changed that much. And if it has, you guys have to adjust what your rules should be in keeping these things clean and so on and so forth. Okay, because it's kind of unusual that it's just us here. What's going on with us here again? Okay, then seems like our section gets affected by everything. Like we said, downtown that gets a sniffle, we end up getting pneumonia. Okay, then, so please check into this.
Sure, happy to do so, and would love some recommendations on where you think we need to be for community outreach. I think we are we are seeing Legionnaires, like I said, across the country increase in cases across the city. I think that we, I want you to not think that it is just like bad actor landlords. That is why this type of system is in place. So we can go figure out like really what is going on. If it is a mechanics issue, if it is, we need to do some additional follow-up. That's kind of why this is designed this way. But yes, taking all of your points into very much consideration, I think, we also want to make sure that people who have these conditions, who make them at higher risk, are aware, even no matter why. I want that should be the message that this is happening. So I thank you so much for your comments and yes, thinking of your community right now, and let us know where you think we should be if we're not in the right location with our outreach.
Great. Thank you so much, Chelsea. And I just wanted to acknowledge that Chelsea, we called her late last night and she was available early this morning. And that just shows your commitment in prioritizing this issue in our area and in our borough. So thank you so much, Chelsea, for your attention and for your time.
Of course. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Up next, we have a representative from Montefiore Community Health, Liz Burrell.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me today. I'm joined by my colleague, Oni Tango, and we're excited to talk with you today about our community health needs assessment process, which has been underway for the last several months. So Oni is going to walk us through just giving an overview of what that process is like generally and why we have to do a community health needs assessment every 3 years. She's going to talk with you briefly about the process last round and sort of what we found throughout that process. And what Montefiore has been doing about it, and sort of adjusting because of COVID, of course. And then lastly, how we're thinking about this process moving forward in light of course, increasing recognition of structural racism and its impacts on health, and how we're really looking to have this be a more meaningful process and engaging the community and leaders like yourselves and working with community members to identify their health needs and their health priorities, and then to share that information once it's collected and compiled and put into a report in a meaningful way. So I'm going to turn it over to Oni, and then of course we're happy to both of us field questions when she's done with the presentation.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. As Liz mentioned, my name is Oni Tungo. I'm the Manager of Health Equity Programs, and I work with Liz in the Office of Community and Population Health at Montefiore. And so I'm going to quickly just walk you through what our community health assessment process looks like, talk to you about what we did for the last cycle, after giving just a brief overview of what that process is, and then to spend some time talking to you about what we're in the process of doing now. And some of you may have actually already seen this presentation if you're part of the Health and Human Services Committee for any of your community boards. And then we'll talk about how you can help us with the process of getting feedback and hearing from the residents of the Bronx. So there are 3 components of the community health assessment process, and this is something that is a requirement for all hospitals that have a nonprofit tax status. It is actually a part of the Affordable Care Act. So those 3 parts of the process are assessing what the needs are for the communities that our hospitals serve, creating a plan of how we're going to address some or all of those needs. And then also, as you can probably guess from the IRS symbol, speaking to how our money is spent in our tax documents and in reporting, how money is being spent to benefit or to support and speak to and serve the needs of our communities. So just briefly, just to give you a sense, this community health assessment process, it actually happens in in 3-year cycles. So the last cycle was from 2019 until 2021. We just ended that cycle, and we're in the beginning of our next cycle, which includes the process of collecting and gathering feedback for that assessment of what assessment of what community health needs are. In the last cycle, we conducted electronic and paper-based surveys between February and July of 2019. Those surveys were available in English and Spanish. They were also available both in paper hard copies, but also electronically, either on phones or through through a link. And we worked the same way that we're doing in this cycle, connecting in with our community health partners, our community boards, our hospitals community advisory boards, as well as health department and other partners across the Bronx. And then had our small but mighty team that went out and did surveys on the street to also get feedback from people in the Bronx. Overall, we had 4,000 surveys. This includes both the Bronx and Westchester. So as many, if not all of you know, our hospital also services Westchester, Rockland, and Orange County. And all of those hospitals are also required and are in the process of doing this community health needs process as well. In the last cycle, we had for the Bronx, a little more than 500 people that responded to our survey. And so for this cycle, we are, especially now that we are able, as long as we are able to go back out in person and having events in person, we're pushing to be there in person, because we've learned that being there in person, that people are actually really willing to complete a paper-based survey versus just doing it online. So using that lesson, we're pushing to get as much feedback, and also why we're presenting at this meeting, to hear from more residents from the Bronx. Now, for the survey from the last cycle, in addition to just asking for demographic information, we had 3 main questions that we were looking for feedback on. We asked people to tell us about what the health priorities were that they saw for the communities where they live, then to tell us what are the 3 actions that they thought would be most helpful to improve the health for the communities where they live, and then to tell us what were 3 health priorities that they had personally for themselves. And on this next slide is just a breakdown of just the top 5 ranking for the answers that we got back from that 2019 survey. And what we saw, so for each of the these 3 columns represent each of those three questions that I mentioned. And if you look at the categories that are ranked top 5, there's actually a lot of overlap. So things like food and nutrition or access to healthy food came up for all 3. Things like chronic disease screening and care, and even thinking about environments that promote living healthier lifestyles, that came up in all 3 as well. And then mental health came up as well. And then what we saw in question 2 that didn't come up in questions 1 and 3 were affordable housing and employment opportunities that came up in the top 5 for that question. Now, just to go back, I mentioned I would talk a bit more about the process, looking at that middle piece, the community service plans that we have to come up with. So within New York State, and listed on this slide, New York State requires that as we're working on creating our plan, that whatever plan that we make has to fall into these 5 priorities that the state has selected for all hospitals that are doing this work, that are required to do this work. And so they do that with the thinking that if we all focus on these 5 priorities, that we will be able to see some, bigger changes across the state versus us each picking to work on our own thing, and then, you know, hoping and pushing and hoping to see that change would gather up, that we would see something across the state. So instead of doing that, they said, okay, when you make your plan, choose from these 5 priorities set for the state, and then within each of those priorities are a list of guidelines that we follow based on the types of programs and the types of measures that are evidence-based, that we would use to then speak to the work that we're doing and including in our plan to address the health needs that have been identified by Bronxites. And so on this slide, what's highlighted are the 2 priorities that we chose for the last cycle, and you can see that they actually fall within those top 5 responses that we got from those 3 questions. And on the next slide is just a breakdown, and I know I'm short on time, but this next slide is a breakdown of what the programs are that we included and focused on for the last cycle for each of the priorities that we chose from the New York State prevention agenda. And so you can see that there are programs that focus on diabetes, and then we also have programs that focus on healthy eating and access to food, both screening patients to learn about social needs, including whether they had access to food or needed support with that, and connecting them and referring them so that they could get help with that, as well as then community-focused programming to look at access to healthy food, and also providing workshops to educate community members on healthy food choices, focusing on drinks. And then for that second part of promoting well-being and preventing mental and substance abuse disorders, we chose to focus on programs that were doing both the education and training of providers as well as community members, so they would be aware of how to use both naloxone as well as buprenorphine, and then also work being done to focus on partnerships between our CBOs and then our hospitals and our emergency rooms to make sure that patients who needed support with substance use, that they were referred to substance use treatment programs. And then finally, so for this cycle, from 2022 to 2024, we're actually right in the middle of collecting surveys. And this cycle, it's a little bit different from what we did last cycle. The first piece is that, like I'm doing today, we've led presentations starting back in at the end of last year, all the way through until even next month. We have presentations and meetings with our health partners, which include you all, to just talk about, both to give an update on what we did and then what our plans are for the cycle, and to get support with reaching out to as many Bronxites as possible to get their feedback and thoughts about what the health needs are for our communities, so that then we can use that to make our new plan for this next 3-year cycle. The survey is live, and it is open until the end of June. So June 30th is the last day that we can collect responses for our survey. And then from there, that data and the responses from the survey, will have the opportunity to pull and look at that data. We're working with Greater New York on that. And so you may hear from other hospitals that are also working on this as well, including St. Barnabas. So we are both using the same survey. So if they come and they present, you can choose which one you want to take. But Montefiore and St. Barnabas are using the exact same survey, which is actually great for this cycle. And then we have a report that we write that is due at the end of this year that will be available, posted to our website, and we will also share that. And then we have a plan for this cycle to come back around at the beginning of next year to both do presentations like this that are focused on what we found, what our plan is, and then we're also working on how to take, for those of you that have seen it, a very long report that we work very hard on, but to condense it into a summary that people can read through, that and also that you all and our other partners can use as it makes sense, and just to make sure that that it's not just this long report that's posted to our website, but that we're using it, but that we're making sure that it is a usable document. And then the last piece is just how you can help us. And really it's for you all, please complete this survey. We want to hear from you. You can reach out to me or Liz to talk to us about any opportunities that you know about where we can collect survey data. This year, again, the survey is available on paper. It is available electronically, and we also have it available and translated into 10 languages. So either you can get it in that language in paper copy from me, or in the electronic version, when you're taking it, you can select the language you prefer to have the survey in, and it will translate that survey right then and there, which I think is great. And also just connect us with any community partners that we can talk to so that we can get this survey out. We have flyers made. We're in the process of creating shorter palm cards. So we really want to get the word out. And this last slide on the left, this is just what our flyers look like. And here is the link to the survey as well as the QR code. So if you have time after this meeting, I recommend if you have your phone, put it up to the screen and scan this QR code now so that you don't forget. But you can also copy and paste this link, and I'll put it in the chat. And again, we really want to hear from you. This is really, really important to us. And our small but mighty team that is just going out and making sure that we get as many Bronxites to participate in this cycle. Thank you, and I'll stop there just to give some time for questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Oni. I have a quick question. Is Montefiore able to mail any of the palm cards to the district offices? Is that something that's possible?
Sure, we will figure out how to get those to you. So you can reach out to me, and we'll make it happen.
I'm thinking that we have a ton of events coming up, and I think this is a great opportunity for us to like have them at our table, things of that nature, especially with the QR code. I think it makes it easy and accessible for folks. So just as an idea.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any questions?
And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And then what I'll do, should I just reach back out to you, and then we can coordinate how to get it to each office, or?
Yeah, and I think you have my colleagues contact both Marisol and Dr. Keck, and we can again, help distribute them accordingly.
Wonderful.
Deputy, I see Laura's hand raised. Laura, was that a new question? Maybe not. I don't see any other hands raised.
Anyone else?
Right now, but if anybody does have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. Nope. No,
I think Laura, is it a new hand raised, Laura? No? Maybe? Okay, great. Well, again, Oni, Liz, thank you so much for being here. I think if you can share the link to the survey, that would be really helpful, and we can again follow up with our board and cabinet and share that link and information.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Wonderful. So we'll move to announcements. And I have Michael Sharp from the Department of Finance with really important information around deadlines that are coming up. Michael?
Hi. Hope can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, great. Thank you for making a brief moment for me. Department of Finance would like to remind folks about the rent freeze program. I know every month I say the same thing, but in this particular instance, please take note. During COVID-19, there's a process of revoking the rent freeze program if a person doesn't reapply. That was paused during COVID-19. And we've been saying that this will sunset, this pause. Well, it's come to that time. Basically, we're asking you this: if people in your particular district were a part of the rent freeze program, please remind them to send in a renewal application. Now, in the Bronx, this is going to affect about 1,300 families. In the different council districts, it ranges from just under 100 to just under 300. We have been sending letters each month. We've actually been calling individuals to see if we can reach them as well. We've partnered with the mayor's public engagement unit to do that. And we've also been in the community. But what happens with the rent freeze program, not only if the program is revoked, will your rent go up, but because we provide a tax credit that offsets any rent increase that you would receive, we would provide that to the landlord. When they don't receive that tax credit, that now becomes a part of the arrears of the tenant. That's the way the law is written. It doesn't have to happen. You simply have to send in the renewal application. So it's a simple process, about a 2-page application, and they've been getting mail regarding this. And many people who haven't renewed, perhaps legitimately, they don't live in the apartment anymore. Maybe they're in assisted housing now, or maybe even deceased. So there's a good portion of these folks that we may not get a renewal from. But for the families that are still living in the rent stabilized, rent controlled, or rent regulated hotel units that have not responded, this could mean an end of a very good, important benefit that they're receiving. So we have packets of information that we can share with you as community boards. The city council members have been contacted about this, and they're actively helping us with the outreach. We just want to put the word out there once again, because at the end in June, this will all come to a head. So thank you for the time. You can reach out to me directly. I'll put my information in the chat. Any type of outreach effort that you want to do in your community, let's talk about it so we can get whatever it is you need: flyers, tabling, virtual events. It has to happen in June. So thank you for that time.
Mike, thank you so much. Are there any questions regarding?
Deputy, I don't see any hands raised.
Great. If they are, we know how to reach you. Thank you so much, Mike.
Sure.
Appreciate
See you next time.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Going
Hey,
once.
this is Ayad from DCWP.
Hello, Ayad.
Just a quick announcement. As of the 3rd of June, that will be my last day at DCWP. I am, it's emotional, but I am transferring over to CCHR with Orlando, and my start date with CCHR will be this July 5th. But any future or any increase or questions for DCWP should go to Tanjil Al-Rahman, who's our Director of Community Affairs. You should please expect an email from me by next week or next Monday. that with all that information, or Tuesday actually, with all that information, but I just wanted to share it here because I see everyone on here. So, it's been really an honor and of a lifetime to really serve in this position and here in DCWP. And I got to work with a lot of you. And I think every one of you really, from, mobile car wash complaints to vending to like business compliance to walkthroughs with George. But it's been really an honor, and I thank you for everything. But well, I'm not too far. I'll be in CCHR. We'll continue the work and to serve, New Yorkers and especially my borough, the Bronx.
Thank you so much, Ayad. And as you see from the chat, you will be so missed in this capacity. We wish you the very best in your next endeavor. Orlando, you have to share the screen now during the next borough board because we still want to see you there. But again, congratulations. And we know that you will continue to serve the residents of the Bronx in your new capacity. Thank you so much again, and congratulations. Thank you.
Very happy to have Ayad. I'll just say that.
Yeah, you guys are lucky. Great, great, wonderful. It's a bittersweet announcement, but we're very happy for you. Any other announcements? Great. We have some announcements from the Bronx Borough President's Office. I'll be brief, really quickly. Many of you know June is Caribbean Heritage Month, and it is also Pride Month. And with that, we'll have a series of celebrations and events throughout the month of June. First up, on June 2nd, we will be hosting our Pride flag raising and award ceremony. So stay tuned to that. June 15th, we'll have our Pride celebration at 6 p.m. at Rosasat Park. Come celebrate Pride with us. And the Caribbean Heritage Celebration will happen at a later date in June to be determined, as well as the location. And so looking forward to seeing you all during our upcoming celebrations. Additionally, I just wanted to share that our next Borough Service Cabinet meeting in June is presently scheduled to be in an in-person meeting. The present state of emergency expires on June 14th, and if the state of emergency is extended by the governor and it covers the scheduled June Borough Board date, this meeting will be remote once again. So I just wanted to flag that as we prepare for the month of June. And so that concludes our announcements. Again, everyone be well, stay safe, taking in Chelsea's recommendations of covering up in indoor settings with folks. Let's continue to do our part and continue to support each and every one of us in community. So thank you so much for your time. Great seeing you all virtually. Be well, have a beautiful rest of the week, and looking forward to seeing you all in June.
Be well, everyone.